For generations, the pattern was straightforward. The American president raised his voice, and Canada responded immediately. The White House issued threats, and Ottawa offered apologies. Donald Trump believed that same pattern still applied. He assumed he could intimidate Mark Carney the way he pressures his own cabinet members. He miscalculated. Yesterday, Trump initiated an economic offensive designed to cripple Canada's economy in a single stroke. He sought complete capitulation. He wanted images of a Canadian prime minister kneeling in surrender. But Carney refused to yield. He didn't flinch, and he certainly didn't say sorry. Instead, he did something Trump never anticipated. He flatly refused. Then he struck back, not through social media, not with loud rhetoric, but with a mechanism now inflicting serious pain on the American economy, leaving Wall Street desperate for relief. You are witnessing a historic realignment unfolding live. The younger sibling no longer obeys automatically. The economic geography of North America is being redrawn before our eyes. Over the next 40 minutes, I will guide you through precisely what unfolded during the past 24 hours. I will present the documents Trump signed, the phone call Carney declined to answer, and the powerful instrument Canada quietly activated that has left the White House desperately searching for an alternative strategy. You need to grasp this because even if you live nowhere near Canada, this confrontation will soon affect your household budget, your fuel costs, and your employment. Trump wanted a confrontation. Carney delivered a full-scale conflict, and at this moment, only one of them appears equipped to prevail. So let's cut through the distractions and examine the stark facts of the last 48 hours. It began Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Washington time. Donald Trump wakes up irritated. Economic indicators are weakening. His approval ratings are sliding in key industrial states. He requires a victory. He needs an adversary. So he turns his attention northward. He uploads a video. Perhaps you've seen it. He sits behind the Resolute desk, visibly flushed, brandishing a document. He proclaims Executive Order 14299. He labels it the Northern Security and Fairness Act. That label is misleading. The order has nothing to do with security and even less to do with fairness. It establishes an economic embargo. Trump stated that starting immediately, every Canadian energy shipment, oil, natural gas, hydroelectric power, would face a steep 25% national emergency tariff unless Canada accepted 3 non-negotiable conditions. Condition 1, Canada must seal its borders against individuals Trump disapproves of. Condition 2, Canada must withdraw from its recently negotiated digital services tax agreement with Europe. Condition 3, Mark Carney must travel to Washington within 48 hours to renegotiate the USMCA trade agreement in a live television spectacle. It was an ultimatum delivered as a ransom demand. Trump considered this an easy victory. He anticipated the Canadian dollar would plummet by midday. He expected Toronto's corporate leaders to panic and compel Carney to capitulate. He anticipated terror. What he received instead was silence. For 4 full hours, Ottawa issued no statement, no official release, no furious posts online. American media began ridiculing Carney. Fox News displayed scrolling headlines declaring Canada's collapse. Trump's staff exchanged congratulations inside the West Wing. They believed they had triumphed without any real effort. Then at 1 p.m., the cameras activated in Ottawa. Mark Carney stepped forward. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't wearing any symbolic headwear. He wore a charcoal suit. He resembled a senior banker declining credit to an overextended borrower. He stood at the lectern, looked directly into the lens, and ignored Trump entirely. He spoke to you. He spoke to financial markets. He declared that Canada refuses to bargain with economic extortionists. He didn't merely dismiss the 3 demands, he rejected the entire framework behind them. He then announced that, effective immediately, Canada was invoking Article 22 of the Strategic Reserve Protocol. If that term is unfamiliar, don't worry. Trump was equally unaware until moments ago, but he understands it now. Article 22 authorizes Canada to limit shipments of heavy crude oil to countries classified as threats to national economic security. Carney officially designated the United States a hostile economic actor. Let those words settle. The nearest ally, the largest trading partner, now formally labeled hostile. And then he adjusted the flow. Within 6 hours, pipeline volumes of heavy crude reaching the U.S. Midwest fell by 40%. Trump's tariff existed only on paper. Carney's countermove delivered a genuine systemic shock. This has moved beyond conventional politics. This is economic combat, and the U.S. president has just discovered he arrived armed for the wrong kind of battle. You may be wondering whether this is genuinely severe or simply dramatic posturing. I want to present the evidence. I want to demonstrate why this represents the gravest crisis in North American relations since 1812. Consider this data point. Here is the spot price for Western Canadian Select crude. Over the past 12 months, it remained remarkably steady. Now observe what occurred at 1:15 p.m. yesterday, 15 minutes after Carney concluded his remarks. The price did not collapse. It surged sharply. Why? Markets quickly understood that American Midwest refineries depend on precisely that grade of heavy crude. Those facilities were engineered for it. Switching to lighter Texas crude within days is mechanically unfeasible. Carney recognizes this reality. He once led major central banks. He understands global economic infrastructure far better than Trump understands his own properties. Evidence point 2, footage emerging from Detroit, recorded 3 hours ago. That is the Ambassador Bridge, the vital artery of North American manufacturing. Normally 10,000 trucks cross daily. Today, it resembles a vast parking area, but examine carefully. The standstill is not caused by border delays. Canadian independent owner-operators have voluntarily halted movements. This was not directed by any government mandate. It is a spontaneous uprising. Canadian drivers are refusing to transport freight into a nation that has declared economic hostility against their industry. Ford, General Motors, Stellantis operate on just-in-time supply chains. They maintain minimal stockpiles. Components arrive on trucks. When those trucks stop, production lines halt. Reports already confirm that 2 Michigan assembly plants have idled workers. Thousands of American jobs paused within 24 hours of Trump's signature. Evidence point 3, foreign exchange markets. Trump's team confidently predicted the Canadian dollar, the loonie, would crater. Traders positioned short against it. Yet look at activity on the Chicago trading floor. The currency held firm. Why? Because Mark Carney executed a second unanticipated step. While Trump monitored cable television, Carney contacted central bank counterparts in London, Tokyo, and Berlin. This morning, the Bank of England and the European Central Bank publicly confirmed liquidity swap arrangements with Canada. In plain terms, major Western economies have moved to underwrite Canadian financial stability. They have chosen a side, and it is not the side issuing 25% tariff threats against longtime partners. This dimension receives almost no coverage. Much of the world has grown weary of Trump's unpredictability and repeated ultimatums. Carney provided them an avenue to register meaningful resistance. By bolstering Canada, Europe is signaling to Washington, you stand isolated. And finally, examine this leaked internal document from the U.S. Department of Energy, marked urgent. It states, verbatim, Strategic Petroleum Reserve release may be necessary within 72 hours if Canadian flows do not resume. 3 days. The United States, the self-proclaimed energy superpower, now faces the prospect of drawing on emergency stockpiles in 3 days because Canada restricted supply. That is genuine leverage. That is real influence. Trump holds the podium. Carney controls the valve. So why is this unfolding? Why does Trump appear unsteady? Because he is still fighting an outdated conflict. Trump believes he remains in 2016. He assumes a tariff threat alone will force compliance. He views the U.S. market as so dominant that no country can risk exclusion. He approaches sovereign nations the way he approaches subcontractors. He can withhold payment. But global conditions have evolved, and Donald Trump is losing his grip because he fails to grasp the updated dynamics. First, he misjudges his opponent. Trump is accustomed to conventional politicians, people driven by electoral concerns, sensitive to negative coverage. Mark Carney is not that figure. He is a technocrat, a data-driven crisis manager. During the 2008 meltdown, he provided steady leadership. When Britain's economy trembled, he assumed control at the Bank of England and stabilized it. He does not react with emotion. He responds with precision. Trump shouts. Carney computes. Trump hurls furniture. Carney secures the perimeter. You could observe Trump's discomfort during his most recent press appearance. He was perspiring. His remarks wandered. He referred to past great relationships in the past tense. He criticized his own commerce secretary. He attacked the press. He is searching for someone to blame because the arithmetic no longer favors him. If he sustains the tariffs, gasoline prices across Ohio and Pennsylvania, states critical to his support, will climb roughly 50 cents per gallon within the coming week. If he retreats, he appears vulnerable. He appears defeated by Canada. He has maneuvered himself into an impossible position. Notice who is conspicuously absent from his defense. Where are congressional Republicans? Ordinarily, they rally behind him. Today, quiet. Senators representing border states are alarmed. They understand their regional economies rely heavily on Canadian commerce. They recognize that if Canada ceases purchasing American dairy or grain, their agricultural constituents face ruin. They are looking at Trump and concluding he overreached. Trump acts on impulse. He awakens, sees something on television, and issues orders. Carney operates strategically. He has anticipated this confrontation for years. Was it coincidence that Canada finalized a critical minerals agreement with Japan last month? Was it chance that Carney conducted an extended series of meetings across European capitals? He was constructing defenses. He understood a confrontation with Trump was inevitable. Bullies require targets, so he assembled alliances. He diversified dependencies. Now, when Trump attempts to apply pressure, he discovers Canada is no longer pliable. It has become resilient. Trump is losing control because his sole instrument is intimidation. But Canada is no longer intimidated. When the target ceases to fear, the bully's authority evaporates. That is precisely the transformation you are observing. A superpower discovering its threats now ring hollow. Let's examine Carney's approach more closely, because it represents a fundamental shift. Traditionally, when the United States applies economic pressure to a smaller partner, that partner seeks compromise. It pleads. It offers concessions. It attempts de-escalation. Carney chose the reverse path. He raised the stakes, but not through verbal attacks. He inflicted structural, targeted damage. He practices asymmetric economic strategy. He recognizes Canada cannot prevail in an all-out trade conflict. The U.S. economy is vastly larger, yet he understands how to deliver precise pain to the precise constituencies Trump depends upon politically. By restricting heavy crude, he strikes the industrial Midwest, Trump's electoral foundation. By disrupting automotive supply lines, he pressures Michigan, again, Trump's base. By affecting lumber and aluminum flows, he raises construction expenses in Florida and Texas, Trump's home territory. He bypasses the Oval Office and targets the political ecosystem that sustains Trump. The approach is clinical, deliberate, and highly effective. Carney simultaneously casts the dispute in moral terms. Listen to his phrasing. He emphasizes sovereignty, rule of law, dependability. He tells global audiences, we represent maturity. The United States has become erratic. That posture attracts capital. International investors despise unpredictability. Trump embodies unpredictability. Carney positions Canada as a stable alternative. He signals, locate production here. We do not conduct trade policy via social media outbursts. We honor agreements. And the strategy is producing results. Reports indicate 2 significant German industrial groups have suspended planned U.S. factory expansions this morning. They are now evaluating Ontario as an alternative. Why? Because they can export globally from Canada without becoming entangled in American trade conflicts. Carney is transforming Canada into the North American equivalent of Switzerland, a secure, predictable, rules-based hub adjacent to turbulence. This is a decade-long play. Trump seeks a headline victory for the evening news cycle. Carney is positioning Canada for where the global economy will stand 10 years from now. He recognizes that unquestioned American primacy is fraying. Rather than sinking with the declining order, he is constructing an independent platform. He is not anti-American. He is committed to survival, and survival currently requires refusing Donald Trump's demands. What does this mean for you? Whether you live in Chicago, Seattle, Houston, Toronto, or Vancouver, this transcends partisan politics. It directly impacts your daily existence. If the impasse persists another week, consequences intensify. First, prices. Nearly every plastic product depends on petroleum feedstocks. Nearly every metal product requires substantial energy for production. When cross-border supply chains fracture, costs rise across categories: fuel, groceries, vehicles, consumer electronics, building materials. Inflation had finally begun moderating. Trump has now accelerated it again. Second, employment. Millions of livelihoods depend on seamless Canada-US trade. If that border hardens, those jobs vanish. We are speaking of truckers, manufacturing employees, supply chain coordinators, port workers. If you work in Midwest manufacturing, your management is currently reviewing inventory levels and calculating that critical components may last only 3 more days. Third, and most consequential, America's global standing. For 70 years, the United States and Canada maintained perhaps the most reliable, uneventful partnership among major nations. They fought alongside each other, constructed NORAD together, engineered the St. Lawrence Seaway together. That quiet stability was an asset. Trump has now torched it. If Washington cannot sustain amicable relations with Canada, which ally can it maintain? Japan is observing. South Korea is observing. The United Kingdom is observing. All are reaching the same conclusion. Alternative arrangements are now essential. This development hastens the close of unchallenged American primacy. It encourages the creation of financial and trade architectures less dependent on the dollar and less reliant on U.S. consumption. Trump believes he is prioritizing America. By estranging Canada, he is isolating America. An isolated America becomes a less prosperous, less influential America. You will experience this reality the next time you shop for groceries and find reduced selection, the next time you fill your tank and see higher prices, the next time you review your retirement account and observe increased volatility. Do not attribute it to distant forces. Attribute it to the leader who believed he could coerce the nation that supplies much of his country's energy. I want to close with one final scene that captures the deeper truth of this moment. Yesterday afternoon, a cell phone video recorded an encounter inside a small diner in a border community in upstate New York, a place where Americans and Canadians have shared meals for half a century. The television displayed Trump delivering an angry statement. In one booth sat 2 men. One drove a vehicle registered in New York. The other's truck bore Ontario plates. They were not arguing. They were not confronting each other. They simply shook their heads. The American appeared weary and somewhat ashamed. The Canadian did not appear furious. He appeared determined, like someone who has finally chosen to leave an unhealthy situation. He quietly paid for the American's coffee, placed a hand briefly on his shoulder, then walked out, climbed into his truck, and headed north. That moment reflects the underlying reality. Ordinary people are not at war. Their leaders are. But the Canadian driver understands something the American driver is only beginning to grasp. His prime minister stands behind him. For the first time in decades, Canada no longer seeks approval. It claims its position. Carney never raised his voice. He simply raised the price of disregarding Canada. And the quiet now emanating from the White House is the unmistakable sound of a bully realizing his former target has grown stronger. So what comes next? We stand on a precarious escalation ladder. Most probable path, scenario A. Financial markets compel Trump to retreat. A plunging stock index is the single development he fears more than appearing weak. He may declare a face-saving agreement to discuss, quietly rescind the tariffs, and later claim Carney pleaded for talks. He will misrepresent events. Carney will release records. The truth will surface, but the harm will linger. Trust, once fractured, shows seams even after repair. Less likely but possible. Scenario B. Trump escalates further, freezing Canadian assets inside the United States, attempting to restrict Canadian financial institutions. Should that occur, Carney would almost certainly activate severe countermeasures, nationalizing U.S. owned assets in Canada or interrupting hydroelectric supply to the Northeast power grid. Picture New York City facing rolling blackouts over a trade dispute. Outlandish, perhaps? With Trump, however, outlandish remains plausible. Least likely, but conceivable. Scenario C. Congressional Republicans finally intervene. Senate leadership visits the White House and insists Trump halt or face override legislation. That would mark the effective end of his unchallenged influence within the party. Carney would become the figure who shattered the MAGA momentum, not only in Canada, but across parts of Washington itself. At present, we hover between scenarios A and B. Each passing hour matters. Every redirected tanker truck adds pressure. Every percentage point drop in equities registers as a vote against Trump's approach. Mark Carney monitors the data feeds from Ottawa without haste. He understands time favors his position. The longer this continues, the more ordinary Americans begin asking, why are we pursuing this? Canadians already know the answer. They are protecting their country, and those defending their home fight with greater resolve than those driven by personal pride. We will continue covering developments hour by hour. We maintain contacts inside the Port of Vancouver, within the tense corridors of the U.S. Commerce Department, and directly at border checkpoints. This story is far from finished. In many ways, it is only commencing. The previous North American arrangement has ended. Carney terminated it to preserve Canada's autonomy. Trump terminated it because he never comprehended its value. Now we wait to see what emerges from the wreckage, whether a balanced partnership of equals or a lasting separation. I'm interested in your perspective. Is Mark Carney safeguarding Canada, or is he challenging Trump to burn everything down? Does this represent the moment the United States finally recognizes it cannot dictate terms indefinitely? Or is Trump preparing to unleash far greater disruption? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if you value unfiltered analysis, if you want developments before traditional outlets decide how to frame them, please subscribe and enable notifications. The next update may alter the entire picture. Stay tuned, stay attentive. I'll be back shortly.